All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fraktio Perjantai-Presis. Hope everyone's been having a good time getting settled down. So today we have Joppe, and he's going to tell us about networking. Please give a big hand to our presenter.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to ask you a question in a couple minutes, which is going to be this question. What is your challenge activating others? What that means is, like, how do you get people to collaborate with you? So you get some time to think about that. I'll continue. So hi, my name is Joppe. I'm a communications and networking expert. I'm a former sociotherapist. I've worked a long time in psychiatry. That's where I get most of my knowledge. So I used to work with people who had a lot of mental problems. Now I work with normal people, but the differences aren't that big, if you ask me personally. I'm very passionate about the subject of communication. Everything I'm going to tell you, you already know. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. This is very simple, very basic stuff. But I'm here to remind you that there's a high chance that you forgot or that you're not doing it anymore. We'll get back to that very soon. And also see if we can structure it together for you guys. What I'm about to tell you is not dogmatic. I do not hold the truth. This is one way of doing it. And please use what you want to use and discard what you think is not useful for you. Also, don't take everything I say too literal, right? A lot of the sentences that I'm going to show you, you can give your own schwung to that, so to speak. As it says here, it is my mission. It is my mission to help you guys communicate better and get what you want. And getting what you want actually kind of means to be able to express yourself in such a way that other people will understand you. Which sounds simple, but it's not. And anybody in a relationship knows that that's not simple. At least I think so. All right. Just some previous customers of mine that I've worked with. I only started this company 2 years ago, so not that many, but I'm very happy with the customers I've had so far. And also companies and people start to understand more and more the benefits of soft skills and what you can actually achieve with that, right? It's not very old school in that sense, not old school business. So here we are at the question. What is a challenge that you've had yourself in how to activate people, how to get them to help you or collaborate with you? Yeah, please. That's fine.
Lack of clarity, common mission.
Lack of clarity. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, some things can be very difficult to, like, we can use the same words, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the other person is grabbing what you're trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah, very good. Yeah. What else? Paul, how about you?
I feel like one of the main problems I have is sort of identifying where the other person's coming from. So I always have to put a lot of work into being in their shoes.
Right, understanding where, yeah, exactly, yeah, that makes sense. Anybody else?
Time?
Time?
In the sense of how do you get people to prioritize whatever it is that you want to do together over all the million other things that they're doing?
Actually, thank you for saying that. I think that's very important, especially in companies, right? We don't have time. Everybody has their tasks. Everything has to be done ASAP. You know, you're in a meeting and you ask, when should it be done? And you hear yesterday or ASAP. Of course, that's physically impossible, right? What I am going to tell you is not going to help with that at all, actually. Why? And this matters a lot. That's why it's such a good question, is because if you want to listen to people, if you want to understand, if you want to get into their shoes, you have to take time. You have to make time for that, right? What's interesting is that if I don't make time, I will lack time in order to understand them. It's simple, right? But we don't do it. We don't create the setting where we have time. Very simple questions to activate people. And actually, the two people that gave their challenges, they already showed it, is mainly about asking questions, right? What you want is you want more information. Now, the good thing is that once we ask, people will tell us. Even if we think they don't, they will. People love telling about themselves. So one of the main questions to activate is no matter what they are saying or no matter what project you're in, you always ask them, why is this important to you? It's a very simple question, but it's very elegant because it's a very personal question. Right? So let's, for instance, say, what's your job?
I'm service manager.
Service manager, right? Okay, so this is good to know. And then I'm going to ask you, why do you care about that?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
From the top of my head, don't really know. Probably the point of it's my job to make people work with each other and make our services work. So it's the end customer will be happy if I do my job.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, if I would have asked you to me describe your work, what would you have said?
Don't know honestly.
Sorry?
Don't know honestly.
Don't know, honestly. Okay, well, that's
yeah. Well, I design our services, I make them like work. That's pretty much my job.
Right,
Managing
exactly.
people
Right.
is like half of it.
Which question is more personal, the first one or the second one? The first one, right?
The first one.
Why do you do it? We often confuse the two with each other. We ask people what they do, but we don't ask them why they do it. But first, and what's interesting also, by telling me why you do it, you actually told me what you do in a way that is more easy for me to understand, right? It's a very simple question, but we forget to ask. It's great to ask. Sometimes people will even say to me, oh, actually, I don't really like what I do. That's a great conversation to have. Really, I really like that, actually. So no matter what the conversation is, no matter what the topic is, no matter what the meeting is, why do you care? You can even ask your boss. Right? There's some meeting. We need more profit. All right. Why? And not to point out that they're doing anything wrong, but actually ask them why. This way, if they then explain to you in a proper way, you can stand behind it. You can be like, well, that I get. It makes it easier to motivate yourself, right? Another example, maybe a bit more easy. Let's say you have a partner and the partner says, you never do the dishes. Please do the dishes. Ask them why. Be careful how you ask it though. Not go like, why? But ask like, okay, this sounds like this is important to you. Why do you care? And then he or she might say, well, it shows me that you care. Oh, well, that's easier to understand. That's easier to do then, right? Then it's not about the actual dishes, but it's about showing care. Another question to ask, and this is my favorite one by far, is asking people about their challenges. Now, what do you think that happens when you ask people, what is the challenge that you have? What happens? They will tell you. People will tell you everything that's bothering them. This is all information to take into consideration. It's free information you're going to get. Now, once they have told you what their challenge is, what can you then do? What can you do then? You can
Validate.
Address, help, right? By doing that, now all of a sudden there's a bond, right? Now this person isn't doing it alone anymore. It's simple, right? Now, especially, let's say you have, for instance, a CEO position. Ask your employees what are their challenges, right? Let's say you're leading a project. Ask people in the project, hey, so you're doing finances. What are the challenges that you have? Because if you don't ask, what will happen is that the people in your team, they're going to think that they have to know everything about the thing that they're doing. They're not going to ask for help. Why? Because the door is not open. And by asking them, hey, so you're doing finances, what do you need actually? Right? What challenges do you have? Do you need help? Specifically, what kind of help do you need? All of a sudden it becomes more easy for them to speak up. Now, how often do you hear that in a meeting? How often does somebody in your team who does not have your function ask you, can I help you? What are the challenges that you have? How do you think that would make them feel if you would ask? It's a good feeling, right? And the best thing is that way I get to help you with whatever it is that I have to offer. And especially when it comes to networking, that's the best thing there is. Because that way, I'm not asking you anything before I have given you something. If I come in straight away with what I want, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, right? Let's take an example. Let's say you're going, who here likes going to networking events? Not a lot, probably. You 1, 2?
I organize.
Yeah. Oh, you organize them, okay, great. It's quite hard for a lot of people to go to a networking event and network, right? It's not per se always a very fun exercise for a lot of people. Certain people love it, but not everybody, for sure. If you want to approach somebody for a collaboration, what is better, to go in, run in there and say what you want, or to ask them what their challenges are and offer them help? Well, the second one, right? It's not rocket science. And the good thing is, as I say, when you ask people about their challenges, they will tell you. They will. It's like magic almost. The only thing you have to do is listen. Only thing you have to do is listen. But that brings us to the next challenge. How do you show that you're listening? Now, the reason why I took this and why this is so important is, to me, this is where good communication starts. This is where good networking starts. This is where any personal communication starts, with your ability to listen. Everybody, who here has heard of the term active listening? Raise your hand. Right, okay. What does that mean, you think?
Depends. For some people it means like that you actually react to what the other person is saying, but it also, depending on that context, might mean like what's your intention in the listening?
Right,
also?
yeah.
Like, are you listening to reply, or are you listening for the potential of the person, or whatever?
Yeah,
Depends
absolutely.
on where the tool is being used.
Right. But you're absolutely right with all of them. Yeah. Anybody have any other ideas how to actively listen, what that means?
To repeat back what they're telling you.
Absolutely. That's where I was getting at, actually. What you want, if you want to listen, the best way to start is to listen with the intent to tell back to the other person what they have said. What other good proof is there that you've listened? Now, why that matters so much is a very psychological, interesting phenomenon. If we feel like somebody has listened to us, they have done something that doesn't happen very, very often, right? In relationships, how often do we feel listened to? How often do we feel listened to by our teachers or our parents? It's not very common. People either will start giving advice straight away, or they will start commenting already even though you haven't finished your story yet. When somebody does listen to us, that's a great gift that we can give them, actually. So the first step to that is indeed listening to be able to repeat back what the other has said. Now, why it says without judgment on the slide is because if in the meantime we're judging what they're saying because we don't like what they have to say, then we're not listening again, right? What we're then doing is then we're reacting. So let's say you're a project manager and you ask a team member for honest feedback and you're going to listen. Now, your team member is going to say something you don't agree with. They're like, you're always late, blah, something. And inside your head, you're already like, oh, what a fucking idiot, right? You're already reacting. Don't do that. The first step is to listen and simply repeat back what they have said. So when that has happened, you go, okay, what I hear you say is, and you repeat back what they say. It sounds simple, right? Now, how often do you think that you actually do that? It's very uncommon. And pay attention to it. Pay attention to it, how often we interrupt the people around us. How often we forget what they actually said. Now, normally when I do the course on this, because this is actually a course of 8 hours, we actually practice this. What I do is I put on a video of 5 minutes, I don't tell them that people have to listen, and then afterwards I ask them, now repeat back to me what this person said. Nobody has ever succeeded in that, ever. Right? Then I go through this whole ordeal and I show them how to listen, and we do it again. The effect of that is phenomenal. Like, it goes really, really quickly. And it's not easy to listen to what someone has to say, because very quickly there's all these holes, because it's hard to calm your own mind to the point where you're only listening, right? So first, listen to repeat back. Secondly, once you have repeated back to them, you ask them, did I get that correctly? Because you'd be surprised how often you think you're listening and you think you got the gist of the story, and you repeat it back and they go like, it's not what I said at all. But this is actually based on couples therapy. You can imagine why, I guess, right? It's a very common thing. Once people actually listen, then the other person goes like, oh, I didn't know that's why. I didn't know that's what you meant. So did I get that correctly? And then there's the third one. Was there anything else? Was there anything else? Because that way, they might have come up with something else in the meantime what they wanted to say. And actually, as you said, indeed, this takes a ton of time, right? But in the long run, this will save you time. So for instance, as a company or a team or a family, if you start doing this, in the beginning it takes tons of time. You know, you can imagine this would make for a very weird meeting. But overall, it will save you time because there will be way less misunderstandings. It will make you understand the reason why people do what they do, why they're interested. People will tell you literally everything. Specifically, if you combine this with the first two questions on why do you care? And what was the second one? I forgot my own text there. What are your challenges? Now, a lot of people tell me, like, yeah, but you can't do this. This is too mechanical. People will find this weird. Yeah, that's true. But this is for practice purposes, right? This is on purpose. You would practice with this. You could do that for an hour a week easily with people. But this is just to get into the right mindset. And then once this has settled in, and this is how you listen, then it becomes more natural, and you start to notice that you switch it up a little bit, and it becomes more of a conversation of sorts. Who are things that this could work? Right? Who are things that they actually do this? Okay, well, happy to see at least a few hands up, yeah. Yeah. It's quite rare. So the first part, as I said, is about learning how to listen. Another part, the reason why it also works is because it also calms you down. So if you set the setting in such a way that you're there to listen, your energy will go down and will make you much more calm in order to get what you want. Because this is where we get, after that, is then what is it that you have to offer? How do you express what it is that you have to offer? Now let's say again that you're at a networking event and you want to explain to somebody what it is that you have to offer. So for instance, could you name me one of your skills?
Software development.
Software development, all right. So now we have an idea what he does, right? Not really, because I have to have this picture already of that, right? Can you give me an actual example of how you software develop?
I set myself up here. Well, I guess I could write you some TypeScript microservices.
Okay, okay. So which part is clearer, the first one or the second one? Well, the second one is at least more detail-orientated, right? Okay. Now imagine that I don't know what you're talking about. By the way, you don't have to imagine because I didn't understand what you said. But in order to make me understand, don't per se focus on explaining in more detail, but can you give me an actual example that happened, for instance, a week ago or a month ago or a year ago, how by using program development you solve the problem. And the reason why I'm asking, by the way, is because let's say that I would have use for your skill, and we meet, and you want to sell yourself, right? You want to show off this skill. You have to be able to explain that to me, right? If then you would only come in and say software developer or HR manager or whatever, I don't understand, right? So, could give it a go.
Good question. I helped solve a problem where someone wanted to build a mobile application, but they did not have an API for it, so we built an API for a mobile application.
All right, perfect. Which one was easier to understand? The first example, second example, or the third example? The third one, right? There you go. And this is where you want to get. So whenever we're talking with people, we want to actually break it down what we have to say. This person that you developed this for, were they happy afterwards?
Yes.
There was a good outcome. All right, so here we go. Whatever you express, what you have to offer, you break down in the following. You describe the challenge that they have. You have, sorry. Then your solution, your skill, and then the outcome. Simple, right? The easiest examples are most of the time with job seekers, right? They might have like a job, let's say you want to, what's a good example? Let's say you want to work in HR, you're an HR manager, right? Now, if I just say I want to do HR, doesn't work, right? As we just showed. So you want to always be able to break it down into this. A side note, however, is this, and we come back again a little bit to the being too direct. If you just start offering things, it's again a lot, right? It's very bit needy. And my favorite analogy is that, let's say I am single and I go to a club to find romantic love, and I run to the first person and say, hey, you want to get married because I'm awesome? Probably not going to work, right? We all understand that you have to kind of like, you have to have a bit of a structure in that, right? So here we are. Could you name me one of your skills, please?
Facilitation.
Facilitation, okay. Could you try it like this? And the best thing is to speak in I, what you do, not what we do, and then as much as an actual example as you come up with.
Okay, so I did my master thesis project for the company. So the challenge was to create a new way to measure customer experience. So I started with one workshop, which I facilitated, and created a structure for the participants to help them to find a common way or the common view about the sort of follow process, what to do after the customer has responded to the survey.
Right. All right, great. Thank you so much. So again, what's easier to understand, the sir saying facilitator or the actual example, the example, right? Okay. But, very simple but, the way that you describe it makes it sound like it's simple. I'm pretty sure it's not, right? Yeah, exactly. When we explain to people what it is that we have to offer, it's very important that we describe why it's challenging. If I can describe why it is challenging, the other will be more likely to understand why I should hire you or need you, right? So for instance, you said something about you had to create a, what was it?
So follow-up process.
Follow-up process, okay. Why is that challenging?
Well, let's say the company was very product focused, measured customer feedback earlier. So how to make them to understand that we need feedback or output from all the units to get the common view. So it's like everybody knows what it's going to be.
All right, so to me it was very interesting, right? In your story, you said try and convince them. I'm very curious what that means. So what's the pain point there? How do you do that? You must have that knowledge, right? So what's your knowledge on people and how to convince them?
Well, luckily there was like the head of corporation said we need to start this and get this going on, but maybe get the local management to understand that what's the role of customer experience to
right.
company and result.
Right. So what I also want to show you is that what's very normal and simple or easy to you is very complicated to other people. And it's actually quite a fun exercise to look at what you do and break it down into several problems that you solve. First of all, you'll get a good boost. You're like, hey, you know what? I actually know this shit pretty well, which is really good. But then you'll also be able to explain that to other people. But it's very hard. Well, it's hard because we never do it. I'll give you a simple example for myself. So my empathy compared to other people is not very high, but more high, right? And I always thought that it was kind of like a natural thing that I had, that just existed. Until I learned this myself, and I started to think about how can I break this down actually? What is it that I actually do? What is empathy? What is this, magic? It's not, right? It's something I do. Then for a long time I couldn't figure it out. I was just walking around going like, I'm trying to think about this, but I can't figure it out. But then slowly it started to come in. So for instance, one thing that I started to notice is that when I'm being empathic, is that I'm paying attention, right? I'm paying attention to what somebody says, how they say it. Are they raising their voice? Are they lowering their voice? Where are they looking? How do they look? Do they look ill? Do they look happy? Do they look angry? Do they look tired? What have they said in the past? And so on and so on. And I learned that all these different parts together, that makes the empathy that I have. Now, if somebody would come into a room and say, we need a very empathic person, I can come in and explain to them why it is that I would be the right man for the job. Otherwise, I would not. Otherwise, I would say, well, I'm empathic, and it would be like, yeah, okay, show me. No idea. It matters because this way, before we go out there, we can practice what it is that we have to offer. You would almost want to make a list of your skills and write them out in this manner. What are the challenges, what are my solutions, and what is the outcome so far? So that when I go to a person and I ask them, what's your challenge? And you say, well, Joppe, my challenge is that I can't get my team to work together. I can say, well, here's my example, and I explain it to you in this manner. What this is actually, when you think about it, is sales, right? I check if you have a need, and if you have my need, then I'll explain it to you. But I still have to sell it. I can't just say, you know, imagine that you want, like if you go to, let's say you want to look for a TV, you go to a shop, and you go to the person that's working there, and you say, I want a TV. They don't know what to do with that per se, right? They will ask questions. So this is what you try and explain. So, first you have the listening, then you have the explanation of what you have to offer. Once you have offered that, this is a really good question. Is the solution that I have something that could help you? Now, again, this sounds very obvious, but do we actually say these words? We kind of expect the other person, you know, to go like, oh, we need that. But ask them. And if you just ask them about their challenge, and they say that they need somebody to facilitate, and you're giving them an example, then why not offer them help? And how often do we do this, actually? Not very often. And I can hear you say, like, yeah, but Joppe, what if they don't need my solution? What do you do then to still keep a good collaboration, a good connection? Anybody?
Give them tips, for example.
Give them tips, yeah, it's neat advice.
You could
Offer what?
You could say, if you ever think you need any help with that, you know, let me know. I'm available.
Right. Yeah, that's good. What's a way to give them more than that they'll for sure remember you? Because don't get me wrong, both are really good, but there's a really easy step. What you actually want to do is introduce them. So, I need to know what I have to offer, but I also want to know what all my friends have to offer and all my colleagues have to offer. I know this because I've shown interest in them, I've asked them why they do what they do, and I asked them what are their challenges. I have all this information, all free. Then I go around and I ask everybody about their challenges. They will tell me. If I can help them, I will offer my help, and I'll say, is this a solution that you could work with? If they say, no, that's actually not what we need or not what we need now, I'll ask them, well, what do you need? Again, what's your challenge? They will tell me, and then I'll introduce them to one of my friends, family, colleagues, whoever can solve it for them. This way you network. This way you collaborate. This way you only work together, only collaborate with people that are actually functional to you. How many people here have a stack of business cards of people they've never spoken to again anymore? Right? Why do we have that? Well, throw it away. Whenever you have a conversation, ask people what is the challenge that you have. Offer your help. If they don't have that, then connect them. Now you have a contact. These people you add to LinkedIn. These people you keep the business card. And this is also very fun. Like, what people also don't really understand is that this is a fun conversation. Right? Because there's interest. There's care. Right? I've shown interest in who you are. Right? Most likely you'll do the same, right? Not always, but most likely you'll do the same. We're having a fun conversation, and we're talking about work or a deal. And then you get to this point where you get this feeling, I'm not sure if we can do something together, but we should do something together. These people you always add to your network. Right? A little bit of on myself. So, for instance, what I do is I do one-on-one consulting. Personal advice on communication. Can actually really be anything. It's most of the time what I do, it's kind of like one-time counseling, one time only. I don't really like return customers, surprisingly enough. It's hard to explain. I do non-violent conflict resolution, and as I said, workshop courses on communication. And does anybody have any questions? Questions on networking, or how to introduce yourself, or anything like that?
What do you feel is the best way to introduce yourself?
It's very simple. Everybody, I get this a lot. Can you help me for a second if you come here? I want to introduce myself. Okay, so first of all, let's say you're at a networking event, right? Why am I at a networking event? I'm there to network, right? But then there's always this, it's a bit socially awkward, right? Well, why is the other person there? They're there to, well, network. So it's very simple. You walk to a person, you go, hi, I'm Joppe. Somebody. So what do you do?
Hang around.
Nothing really. Right. Thank you. That was it. That's truly how it goes. That's it. If you have trouble with the actual physical activity of the introduction, there is steps to it though. So what that actually means is very simple. You spot a person, and what I like myself is that always choose somebody that you get a good feeling with, right? I don't think you have to talk with everybody. I don't have to think you'll have to like everybody at all. So you choose you have a group, you pick a person that you feel good with. You look them in the eye, step forward, stick out your hand, shake it, and you say who you are. And you ask them what did they do, which is a bit cliche, but they will tell you. And then you ask them what?
Why is it important to you?
Why is it important to you? What are your challenges? And you go through the whole ordeal. Simple, right? This way, with the first person, you will have a conversation going. You don't have to keep it going because you are showing actual interest. Another thing I always tell is this: ask questions about things you want to know. I've seen too many people almost nerve-wrackingly keep a conversation going about topics they don't care about because they think this is how they have to act. But always think about something you really want to know, even if you don't know anything about it. So let's say you walk into somebody who's super interested in nuclear fusion. Well, I know shit about nuclear fusion, but have questions, right? You just always ask. You keep it going that way. And by asking them what are the challenges and why do they like it, you keep the conversation going. It's a very elegant and very simple way, and it works almost every time. And if it really doesn't work, well, maybe we shouldn't be talking to that person. Yeah.
besides nerve-wrackingly trying to keep up a conversation, what are some common mistakes or like kind of faux pauses that you see people do that avoiding them, life would be better?
I think the main one is not doing anything. So there, I go to a ton of networking events, and there's always a surprisingly large group of people standing in the corner with a piece of pizza and a beer. They're not talking with anybody. And don't get me wrong, if it's not your thing, then don't be there, right? That's perfectly fine. It's not for everybody. Not everybody is that active or likes that, right? And I've seen too many true introverts force themselves to network. And to be honest, I would say if it's not your thing, don't do it, right? Or do it for as long as it's comfortable to you. Then the second thing, as I said already, is definitely people start to think that they have to ask interesting questions or say something interesting. That means that you're not concentrating on the actual conversation, you're not concentrating on you and this person, you're concentrating on what's being said. And that really derails the whole conversation. Always ask stuff that you want to know, and also always be honest. Speak from the heart, explain yourself why it is what you do. Now, what that does is that makes a place for you to tell a story. That's why the question, why do you do what you do? Why do you like it? Is such a good question, because when you do that, people will start telling you the story. Where are they from, right? How did they get to this company? How did they get to this project? Why do they care? It's really fun conversations. I'm thinking big mistakes people make. I would say those are the biggest two. Yeah. And another thing, and this is a bit of a cliche, but try and enjoy it. And if you don't force it, right? If you're like, let's say you're all excited, you go to a networking event, and within 5 minutes you're like, oh man, I'm not in the right mindset, go home. You don't have to do it, there's no point. And for instance, if I'm not in the mood and I try and do sales, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to fail miserably, obviously, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a really weird myth these days that everybody just has to be super extroverted and super networky, and it doesn't work like that. Also, networking definitely doesn't have to happen only at a networking event, right? My preferred way of networking is coffee or lunch. I'll meet somebody. Like I had it today. I was actually having lunch in Byung in city center, and I met an old acquaintance of mine from the startup world, and this person said, we should have lunch, as one does. And I did. And now we have booked a lunch, and there we can talk a bit business. And guess what I'll do? I'll ask him, how is he doing, and does he like it, and what are your challenges, and then keep the conversation going. And then if he says, well, I need this, well, you get the point, right? All right. Any other questions?
How to end a discussion?
Very good question, yeah. So the most polite way is, of course, to wait till somebody's done. And this is really interesting because it hooks very much into what I said. If we interrupt people, they will still want to finish their story. Even over a time period. So let's say that you and I have a conversation, and you not let me finish. Subconsciously, this will be stuck in my mind till the next time that we meet. So I'll bother with you again. By letting me finish, the conversation is over. Now let's assume that you have time. You let them finish. You pause. And you give it a 2-3 second pause. And then you stick out your hand and say, hey, it's very nice, very interesting story. Either we book a meeting or I introduce you to this person, thank you, and I move on, right? But I can also, of course, hear you say, like, yeah, but what if they don't stop? And it happens. I was at Slush, and there was a man, he introduced himself, and even before I said my name, he pulled out his phone and he started showing me some app. And I didn't understand it, and then after a couple of minutes, I understood that he was looking for funding, and I tried to tell him that I'm not an investor, I don't have any money. He wasn't listening, he just kept pushing the buttons, and the only thing that I could do was, in a polite way, stop him and move on. And I was abrupt. I took his hand. I said, hey, I'm very sorry, but I really have to go. So I would suggest that you do explain a reason, but you also leave. Now, if you do that with confidence, it will not be seen as rude. Practice here is good, because the first few times you'll do it, they're going to think you're probably an asshole, but you get better at it. And what you do is you kind of abruptly stop them, you shake their hand, and you start walking away already, but there's a very neutral thing behind it, right? There's no judgment there while I'm leaving. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Hey, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a great weekend.